Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Sorry it took us a little bit of time to begin, but we're here now. I'm Prasid Banerjee. I'm from Mint, and as we slowly start, coming out of the COVID world and we start thinking of a post-COVID world, I think one thing that has been clear is that technology has played a huge role in the during the lockdowns and the fact that it will play a huge role going forward. That is exactly what we aim to discuss today. And in this webinar by Huawei, in association with COAI and the HT Group. And we have some incredible panelists. We, of course, have Mr. Rajan Matthews, who's the Director General of COAI. We have Mr. Emmanuel Alves, who's the Senior Marketing Director for Huawei Technologies. We, of course, have Mr. David Lee, who's the CEO of Huawei India. We will be taking queries later, so please leave your questions on the Q&A tab. We will be looking at it. And for now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Mr. Matthews for some opening comments.
Prasad, yeah, I think you need to get me on camera again. So I think I'm off camera. So just get me back, unless you just want a vocal interaction. Okay. Anyway, so let's start at least. Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. So again, Prasad, thank you very much. In cooperation and partnership with HT Mint, we're very pleased at COI and IMC to be doing this along with Huawei. I think we have plenty of information to share on this particular topic, and so we're very pleased to be able to present this. Again, sorry for the delay. There's a few technology glitches, but Emmanuel is participating from China, so we're very pleased that he's there. And also welcome to David. David Lee has just commenced his stint as the new India CEO of Huawei. So we want to welcome David along to this particular forum as well, and his role in India. And Huawei has really played a major role in India in terms of our network operations, the value that they have brought to our operators in terms of the technology, in terms of design of our networks. We're very, very pleased that they have partnered with our operators as well. And so we look forward to what they have to share with us on the technology front when we are battling this pandemic called COVID-19. So back, Prasad, to you, and we look forward to the information that Huawei will share with us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Matthews. Yeah, I mean, we are looking at a very, tech-savvy world from here on. I'll actually hand it over quickly to Mr. Alves. Emmanuel, if you can take over and talk about, how technology has helped, how you have some real-life examples of what has happened during this time. So, and it's over to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, Emmanuel. Thank you.
Okay. So first of all, good afternoon to everybody. And I'm Emmanuel. I'm from Huawei headquarters, and we'll discuss currently in the next 30 minutes about what ICT, what cutting-edge ICT technology could be useful at our time to deal with this COVID-19 pandemic issue, and as well to look at what could be as well some possible follow-up even after we could assume we will handle this virus pandemic, how we could expect as well ICT to be used in our society and to be used as digital, let's say, capabilities to leverage, let's say, recovery from our economies around the world, and as well to deal with every daily work that we are doing. For today, I would like to share with you two aspects. The first one is to look at some ICT industry insight that we see currently. And as well, the second part will be the most important one, is to share with you use cases related to the COVID-19 issue, and showing across the world, across industry, what are possibilities that we see today to deal with this pandemic issue around the world. So first of all, on the ICT. I start from application, and you can see on this page different application at different levels, targeting different type of business, and all of them have something similar. All of them in the past few months, since beginning of this year, and at the time the pandemic issue raised into our societies, all of them see quite strong growth. Quickly, if you look at, for example, the cloud services, and you do see here some examples on different companies, you do see that from Alibaba, from Google, from Microsoft, all of them have seen quite strong move on the cloud. Alibaba has decided, and recently in the past few days, few weeks, made clear that they will add extra investment targeting the cloud and up to $28 billion within the next 3 years. We see as well that in the first quarter this year, from Google, there is a quite significant increase on their cloud revenue, more than 50%. Microsoft as well is showing quite strong growth in this early this year. So cloud definitely something that we see today do have impact and do have acceleration. It's not new, maybe from most of us, I believe we know cloud is already in our business in the past years, but we do see that possible acceleration right now because more business taking advantage of cloud to deal and to, in fact, overpass all challenge from the COVID-19 virus. Second one is, I see here mentioned 4 cases or 4 as well companies from Zoom we are using today, from as well Google, Microsoft, Alibaba, audio video conferencing, and I would say more like a toolkit that is currently used around the world to keep connected companies between each other, colleagues working in the same company. Just maybe one example I can quickly mention. If you look at the end of 2019, on average, on a monthly basis, Zoom was able at the time to have 10 million sessions within 1 month. And if you look at from the beginning of this year, it is somewhere in the range of 200 million. If we assume around 22 working days a week, we can see that what is going right now in one single day was equivalent to 1 month in 2019 on the number of video, audio conferencing on Zoom. And you do see as well on the other option that you see from Microsoft, Google, Alibaba as well, quite strong growth on those new type of service. And we do believe this is quite fit today for the time being, and as well across the time, maybe not only for the time of the virus, of the pandemic issue, as well some significant maybe growth on our today ICT industry. Third one I want to quickly comment. There are multiple applications here. You see 5 of them at the bottom of the slide, from mobile gaming to e-education on the iPad, on the download of education application in the past few months. All those applications as well, like application tracking. Here I mentioned the one, for example, you use currently in India. There are as well other countries using type of application like application tracking. All of them are showing extremely strong growth, and all of them as well are related to all the change today that we have based on this pandemic issue. Those applications, we do believe, at least for some of them, will still remain extremely strong in the years to come. So we believe that the COVID-19 issue has speed up, has pushed, in fact, those applications even fast going into our business. And the 2 quick comments as summary of this slide. So we do see quite very significant relation between the COVID-19 fight that we have today on every part of the world and the use of different ICT applications. So we do see quite a strong relation and quite beneficial from the ICT application to deal with this in our different societies. And we do see that these are for very simple, sometimes communication application, to some of them, and I will show you today on the use cases that are getting maybe more advanced, more sophisticated, that could deal with several business and as well consumer needs, that could as well deal medical care. I will discuss quite a lot today on use cases, education as well, that could be, let's say, beneficial and making more and more use in this digital society. Impact is obvious. If you see the traffic and the application growing, you see as well traffic that have a direct impact on the use of more and more of this digital application. I select here 10 cases. They are not all of them. There are just some of them I pick up in different parts of the world, from Asia, including here in India market, as well across Europe, Africa, with Vodacom in South Africa, and as well on the US market, like Cox in US. You do see here both fixed and mobile networks, and you do see here the increase of traffic in the past few months, in fact, with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic issue. You do see that both fixed and mobile traffic is growing, not necessarily at the same percentage level. You do see that sometimes it's maybe more on the fixed or more on the mobile, depending as well on the country situation, on the development, for example, on the fixed broadband, as well development on the wireless broadband solution. A quick comment on this, and I believe India is a very, let's say, good example for this. You do see that here in India, we do see average 13% right now increase on the wireless traffic, with, of course, this average value across India, which is quite large country. So you do see as well that within cycle, within cities, big, small cities, or medium-sized cities, we have sometimes even up to 30 or 30+% increase on traffic. We do see pattern change on traffic. We do see the pattern change typically busy or peak hour. In the past, we do see maybe more traffic, daily traffic in city center, because people, of course, were at the office, where today we see maybe traffic as well shifting to some second-level city, where, for example, people are working from home. We see as well change during the day when the peak is not necessarily what was before. So we do see as well shift on the pattern, on the traffic patterns. If you try or if you do compare all the cases I mentioned in this slide, you do see, of course, differences that could be explained on the case by case, depending on some local strategy. I give you two examples here. Video codec. Some countries, European countries, India, I believe, has done as well, do take decision to reduce the resolution of the video codec. That could as well be beneficial to make sure that you have relevant capacity to deal with this traffic increase. So this can be one possibility to explain that sometimes maybe some countries that do not, for example, implement this video codec resolution do see more growth on the traffic. You do see as well, time to time, in countries, policy in place or new policy being in place for data alliance. Data alliance typically at the time of this COVID-19 lockdown, and this data alliance as well can justify sometimes the traffic increase, whatever on the fixed or on the wireless. So altogether, we see today most of the operators, whatever, in some cases more on the fixed, sometimes more on the mobile, do see an increase on the traffic. And this has impact on the performance, on the network performance. So here you do see on the wireless internet speed, you do see comparison on average between February 2020 and March 2020. Here I pick up only some countries. You can contact me if you like, if you want to have the full report detail. There was a public report that was kicked off early April that was comparing February and March 2020. It was coming from the company I put as a source of this page. And there was around 50 countries that have been put in this, let's say, study. Just pick up some of them as example. In fact, you can do 3 baskets on those around 50 countries that were studied on the mobile internet speed. The first one, the one on the blue, like Japan, Germany, Mexico, they do see increase between February to March, increase on the average down speed on the wireless network. Could be one reason for that is that maybe traffic has been shifted in some way in those countries on the fixed network, means maybe in some way less need on the wireless. Then there is the second set of countries like Austria, Denmark, Singapore, Canada. These are countries are considered stable. There is variation compared to February to March, but it's quite stable. And there is third segment of countries, the one in yellow color, where, for example, India is there, as well as countries like South Africa, China as well is there, and some countries from Italy. Here, there are countries where the speed, on average, downlink speed on the wireless internet is going down. Sometimes it's quite significant. If you see Italy, China, they are around 16% down on the speed between February and March. These are typically countries where the growth of traffic has been quite significant, at least within March compared to February, and do have impact on the speed. Of course, you have to follow up this on a monthly or weekly basis. If there are policies being considered after March, that, for example, depending on codec resolution and so on, it could be that some of those countries that were in March not showing very good capabilities on the speed, means the speed going down, could be that later in April getting better, assuming, for example, some policy being considered, not only one, policy can be multiple. One of them can be the video codec resolution. We know as well, and we comment in some countries, we know that government do give the possibility on a temporary basis to operators to get more spectrum. And if you can get more spectrum on a temporary basis, it can help you as well to accommodate the traffic. That means to get more capacity and to get as well better experience for your customers. This is as well another insight I want to share with you today on this ICT and what we see from the evolution on this current time in the first half of this year is about 5G. Why I want to mention a few words on 5G, because you will see later some use cases I will display that are related to 5G. And secondly, because it is a hot topic today in our industry. This is not new, this was already last year, but we do see still today 5G quite on the top of the list on what we discuss within, let's say, between vendors, operators, and within the wireless industry. One key message I want to mention here, which is what you see on the title. Still 5G is growing, still 5G is moving forward since early 2020. Here I give concrete examples on different aspects from Asia, from Europe, from as well North America. Those aspects are typically, for example, on the new spectrum allocation. You do see that countries in Asia, for example, do assign spectrum in the past few months. Singapore is one of them. Thailand was as well recently. New Zealand, I believe, was early May as well, decision to assign officially a spectrum on 5G to operators. You do see as well operators getting ready and putting 5G into commercial use. Recently was, for example, in Japan. There are as well some other cases that we see today on operators like in Thailand, going commercial within the first half of 2020 and making use of 5G as well to bring more capacity, more experience into the legacy wireless business. We do see this as well in Europe. So in Europe, I did two baskets. One basket on different operators, like Hutchinson in UK, Telenor in Norway, Vodafone as well, that do take, let's say, move to 5G on the commercial basis in the first half since early January 2020. We do see as well country, Hungary example, Sweden, that do in the past few months auction spectrum to operators. So they are still pushing 5G and putting 5G on the roadmap from, let's say, business point of view. And you do see the last one I want to comment is North America, especially US, where you still do see from, let's say, the tier one operators, AT&T, T-Mobile US, Verizon, as well US Cellular, spending investment on 5G, putting more 5G equipment into the commercial network. And if you look at the last comment I can mention is that Verizon did, let's say, update its CapEx strategy in the past few months and took the decision to add additional $500 million for 5G in 2020 and to deal with all maybe requirements they do see today in US on 5G that could be linked, for example, to capacity, to eMBB, that could as well help them to fight and to deliver good service to their customers and to US citizens. At the time, maybe there are challenges like you cannot go always at the office so easily, and as well you need to deal with business as much as possible. We do see a last remark that could be as well across the wireless industry, not only specific to 5G, is spectrum. I want to make one last comment on spectrum, is that we do see several countries, since the COVID-19 issue came to our countries, we do see several, and I named some of them in this slide on the bottom at the note, that have done, at the country regulation, done a decision to assign temporary spectrum license to operators to help them, in fact, to deal with capacity. It's not specific to 5G. In some cases, it can be linked to 5G, but as well, it can be linked to other technology like 4G as well, which is quite as well significant today in the wireless industry. So this is as well indication that there is, from the wireless industry, move and let's say not just a standby on this difficult time maybe for many countries, but still moving forward on the wireless investment and business. So then the second part, which is the most important one for today, what I want to share is about use cases that are typically linked to the COVID-19 and to overpass all challenges that we see today on the COVID-19. I want first to comment a generic comment before I go to different use cases. The generic comment is that there are multiple use cases to deal and to overpass challenge on the COVID-19. And those use cases could be split, and you will see this later in the slide I will show you. They are organized on different areas. There are some use cases that are more focused on the consumer market. Some are typically addressing the broadband market, like typically offering broadband, better experience on people working at home, for example. And there are, of course, and this is maybe the first one I will care to discuss with you, use cases are typically linked to verticals and medical care. You see here, I put on the right side one photo about medical system equipment. Obviously, medical care industry is the first one today be on the front line to deal with the virus. And yes, they do as well, from ICT point of view, take advantage on the latest cutting-edge technology to deliver a better service and as well to minimize risk. So this is more or less how we organize the next slide, going across several use cases, and you will see there are multiple use cases, and do consider on this segmentation on those three aspects, what I call 2C, 2H, and 2B. So the first one I want to comment, and this one you are already doing it in India. This one is what we call contact tracking application. You see on the top of the slide, I quickly name the goal of this kind of new application. It's obvious, it's directly linked to the COVID-19 challenge, and it's one app that you are used to use between people to know if there are people that have been in close contact with someone who have been infected, being able to detect who are those people, and being able, of course, to follow up to know if they have really been infected, and if yes, to do the right treatment. So this is already in place. India is one of the countries that has already put this kind of tracking application in place. Mid of last month, mid of April, there was 28 countries worldwide that already start to use those apps in real commercial service. You have different options to use this app. You have option, what I call, you see this on the left side, I call this two technical approach, two technical option, or you do distributed, or you do more centralized approach. If you do distributed, you more or less, you have data that are shared at the device level, are only at the device level, are not so much exchange. The data are typically the data on who you was close to in the past 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even sometimes in some cases 1 month, like 4 weeks. So these are information which are only at the phone, only stored at the phone. That could be one strategy. Or you have another strategy, is that those information, typically the people that are, let's say, next to you, that you meet during day across, let's say, weeks and months, those are information back to the network and to some storage server. Obviously, in that case, you have more power to do processing on those data, to have more information on how you can control as well the disease. However, and this is as well a big debate today, I believe India, maybe you as well join this kind of debate, is the question when you share those data, which are private data, obviously, what is the level of privacy? And every government, so these are decisions from government level, not from vendors, not from operators, every government do take a decision on the situation on its local place, on what's better for their citizen. Is it better to have more centralized, or is it better to have more distributed? This work on every device. It can work, obviously, it works mainstream in smartphone, but it can work as well on feature phone. I believe in India you have both options already in place, which give you a complete possibility across all mobile users. And you see here from application itself, from the way you design, you implement application, you have multiple players, not just one company or one entity to do those kind of application. It is a cross players, cross industry application. Obviously, yes, government is involved, but as well operators, OTTs, the one that are doing OS system can be as well involved. And of course, the company to develop, like software developers, could and should and are involved in this kind of, let's say, application design. So it's a cross, let's say, partners, cross-domain type of capabilities that are used to deal with those applications. Then the next one, which is the big topic for today, maybe the most important one that I want to mention, is the ICT in the medical care business because of the COVID-19 issue. So here you see first requirement, and you do see here basic requirement from hospitals, from the medical care industry. You do see here I named 6, which are maybe some of the requirements they do see from the medical care industry. They want collaboration. It's not just one team that will fight against the COVID-19. It has to be across team, best possible collaboration, best possible information exchange. So they need as well to deal with expertise that are not necessarily always at one place, and you cannot have as well all experts at one place at one time. So they need as well good resource sharing between experts, good practice, best practice on what they do between hospitals. They do need as well, and this is maybe very hot right now, to develop vaccine, to identify exactly on this virus what are possible medicine or molecules that are fit for this type of vaccine. Here, I will comment later, AI is already being used. AI is already being used to speed up and to do better implementation of this vaccine solution that we do expect coming as soon as possible, but of course need time, and AI, typically ICT, could be a way to proceed faster on this vaccine. There is as well all aspects which are directly linked to people to deal with in the hospital, in clinic, to deal with those who are infected and they need protection. And we see as well ICT can be as well possible way to optimize this. You have as well all the tough job, which are the people meeting every day those who are infected, and how to manage the risk and to minimize possible risk on them. And you do see as well there are basic tasks, for example, in hospital, in places where there are infected people or there were well-infected people, how you take care, for example, to do better processing and typically to spray, assuming medicine or spray any kind of let's say liquid that could as well remove this virus. You can do by people, like you see on the photo. Why not as well? And I will show you later. Why not to do with robot? And if you do with robot, of course, you don't put the people on the front line on the risk, because robot will do the job instead of people that you send in place where you know it is high risk or has been 100% guaranteed that there is already COVID-19 in that place. There is as well other requirements which are not only for the medical care staff and people, but which are across all the society from government. Government need, of course, to do good alignment between different resources, between different departments. There is need as well from the people who are in the hospital, who are into treatment. Those people need as well to connect with families. They need to get support. They need to see their kids or their family. So that means as well requirement on the side when they are living in the hospital and could be sometimes for several weeks. There is as well for people that are suspected but not necessarily infected to stay in quarantine. Quarantine can be sometimes 2 weeks, 3 weeks or more. Those time that you are in quarantine as well, you need to connect with the outside world. You need to connect with your family, with colleagues as well, and you need as well to deal with all let's say daily action that you still need support from others, and you need as well recommend here on typically, for example, good let's say support on communication and so on. So these are use cases. There are 8, 4 on this page and 4 in the next page. All of them are already, so these are application use cases, all of them already in place. It's not just slides on my screen. They are being used every single day right now in different parts of the world. The first one you see on the top left is simple. If you are medical staff, if you work in hospital where there are people infected that you have to do treatment, there is extremely high risk. And you need, obviously, to get well protected before you meet those infected people. You need to be protected from head to feet. You need to be protected from everything you will have to touch or whatever. You need to protect yourself. You can do, and normally you see those 3 people on the left side, you could have the complete already protection that you believe are fit enough, but maybe there is a little mistake. Maybe the mask is not well attached. Maybe the glasses are not well positioned, or maybe there is something somewhere that is not fit well. So what we can do today and what hospitals some are doing, before those people enter any room where there are infected people, there will be cameras that will double check all the setup they have done before to enter, to detect if there is any possible issue on the way they have set up all the protection, and if yes, to make a decision and to tell them what is wrong. Glasses not correct, mask not correct, or something wrong on the pants or whatever. So this is as well maybe one more security that can be offered to those people to take a lot of risk to go on site to deal with those infected people, to make sure that when they go to meet those people, they have the right level of protection. Secondly is what we call CT, remote CT consultation. CT is one of the possible exams that can be done at the hospital to detect if you are infected or not. The CT normally is done at the, let's say, local side, at the place you do the CT. You get a kind of paper copy, and you have to meet chief doctor or doctor with the report, the paper report, to look at and to get diagnostic. What has been done typically in the past few months is do not just have a paper copy. Do have a digital copy of the CT scan, and do have a digital copy of the CT scan to do many things, to, for example, make use of AI to do a pre-diagnostic. Even before the doctor will look at the case, he will know, or there will be an AI algorithm that will do a pre-checking and give a kind of early guidance to the doctor. And this can be used at the doctor or chief or level of doctor to do fast decision on the diagnostic, assuming already part of the decision could be a guidance from the AI technology. Could be used as well, if you have a digital copy, is to exchange information between departments in the hospital, between departments that could be even across hospitals. Do have as well possibility to already get knowledge shared between different experts on the medical industry, on the doctors, on those who are working on the front line to deal with this disease. It can be as well used for teaching those that will have in the next few days or few weeks to deal with those people who are infected and to make diagnostic. So it can be all of this, if it is digital, can be better and speed up. On the right side, you see as well other aspects. You see on the top right, mentioned mobile trolley. What is a mobile trolley? It is used in hospital where there are infected people. When people are in the hospital, they need, of course, time to time, some care. Care can be food, drinks, water, can be as well care to discuss, to ask something to the nurse and so on. Option one is the nurse is going to the room to deliver food or drinks or whatever, or to ask, to get the request from the patient that has a question. This is risk that you take more you are close to those people who are infected. So here, this mobile trolley, instead of sending doctors or nurse, you send this mobile trolley. This mobile trolley can be simple tasks, just deliver, for example, water, or could be even higher level of tasks, can be to be able to set up a communication, audio or video, between the one that is infected that wants to ask something to the nurse and the nurse that, for example, is sitting to another room, to again minimize the risk that this nurse can be infected if she's next to someone who has the disease. And the last one, sometimes it is called, the one on the right button is called Hospital Cube. It's a small equipment that you can easily move from one room to another one is one equipment that has the possibility from the doctor, from the chief doctor, and you see here the photo, to remotely connect from this hospital cube to connect the room where there is the person that has the disease, and to double check remotely, do a kind of, let's say, checking of this person without meeting face-to-face the person, using this, let's say, remote robot to connect to the room and to do all the process on checking the person that may be infected without being next to. Of course, all those service use cases I mentioned here, whatever the first one from checking the protection, staff is well protected, to the last one when I call this hospital cube, all of them need connectivity. All of them need good broadband network. All of them are linked to capabilities that could be for some of them video communication and so on. That means here you can see some of them as well on AI technology like the CT I will discuss later, more details. So this is the possible, and we see today already concrete use of the ICT technology in the hospital to deal with the virus. There are here as well 4 more cases. The one on the top left is about to define the profile of this virus, and here AI has been used to speed up and to get the clear profile of this virus. It can be used as well, you see on the left, you equipped like a kind of self-driving vehicles, you equipped with, let's say, capabilities to spray medicine liquid, and the big advantage at the end is that instead of sending people in place where there is high risk to be infected, you send these vehicles that will do the spray of this liquid medicine to, at the end, remove the virus. So this is, again, to minimize risk that people dealing with all the tasks to fight against the virus, remove the risk that they are infected, and particularly, like mentioned here, you could have the possibility to use those kind of robots to do already a spray of liquid medicine in place where you know it has been infected. It can be in factory, it can be in the hospital, it can be in parking place, on whatever you think about. Last one, I will put maybe both items on the right together, is what we call thermal cameras. They can be static, they can be put into a robot, and it's simple like this. They are cameras that will check the fever of people. Everybody that will pass by the camera will, let's say, record not the video of the person, that will record the level of fever. And typically here is to detect as soon as possible if there is people with risk, with fever, not necessarily with the COVID-19, but at least detect the people with fever and do check if yes or not they are infected. It is already used in many places. It is used today in China, yes, but as well outside of China. And it is used on many places. It can be in public places, airport, train station. It can be in public places like in campus and so on. And this is typically used to try to control the disease, to not have any, or to minimize the risk that someone is infected and you don't know, and you are getting more worst case because this person could, across the time, if not detected, infect quite a number of people. So those cameras are used to protect citizens in the way to detect if some people do have risk of this virus already. There is a good document. If you have interest, I would really encourage you to get the public document. It was published a few weeks back. It was published by Computer Weekly in the early May, just 2 weeks back. And there is a special report in this edition of Computer Weekly about AI technology, artificial intelligence, to become really quite powerful to fight against the COVID-19. They have named several cases within the medical care industry, especially, but not only, where AI technology is on the front line to deal with the virus and to speed up whatever you can assume from treatment, from forecast on possible risks that could happen in some places, and as well to speed up the setup of a vaccine, to set up a kind of additional expertise on the top of all people that are top chief experts from the medical industry, but to get as well another level of expertise from the AI and do try to use this as well to speed up the delivery and the realization of the vaccine. So there is quite a number of cases as well being discussed here in this report, in this edition of the Computer Weekly early May. I don't have time to go today on this, but I would recommend and encourage, if you have interest, to go and check what is written in this document. This one, I want as well to spend maybe 2 minutes on it to show as well what is today the power of this ICT technology on the way to deal with the virus. So here, back to the topic of the CT scan. CT scan is one of the possible exams that can be done to detect if you are or not infected. CT scan is simple like this. You get in one place, in one room where there is a CT scan. You get the check, you get the scan. And normally this will be uploaded into a computer system. You can see in this way what we call PACS. Then normally in the practical use before, you do have a paper. So from this PACS, you publish a paper copy. You give this paper copy to the nurse or to the person that just done this CT scan, and this will be given face-to-face to the doctor that will check the result. We read all these different paper documents, and we make a decision if yes or not you are infected. On average, it takes 12 minutes from the doctor when you receive this paper report, to make the decision. This was before, and today to improve or to, let's say, speed up this diagnostic, we do another way. We don't publish any paper report. We put everything digital. We keep everything digital. And first, we use AI technology to process this digital imaging scan, and to try to do a pre-diagnostic, try in fact to already do a pre-diagnostic on what could be the level of the infection, if yes, and what is typically the, let's say, part of the image that could be the one to indicate that you have been infected. This pre-diagnostic is sent on the digital format to the chief doctor or to the doctor on top of the image from the scan. And then the chief doctor can, of course, and will be the one to make the final decision, but the chief doctor do have the advantage to get as well this pre-diagnostic on the top of the digital image, could do as well different capabilities like zooming and so on, which is not possible normally on a paper copy, and do have the advantage to make a diagnostic in only few minutes, 2 minutes normally, instead of 20 minutes. So you understand here, you cut the time to make a decision. That means the chief doctor can make more diagnostic on average every hour. And another big advantage is that you have the possibility to exchange as well this information between an hospital or clinic in one place to another one where there is a chief doctor that could not necessarily be available in small hospital. And you can take advantage of this to be done in just few seconds or few minutes. That means you are complete digital. You take all today possible advantage of ICT, from connectivity, from AI technology, to speed up and to make more precise diagnostic. You see on the top of this slide, I name what should be done if you want to get to this. For sure, you need to connect the CT scan to one router. It's simple. In fact, you connect the PACS system, which is a computer, to the router. You need a broadband network. It can be fixed, it can be wireless, it can be 5G, yes. And then you need to send this to the cloud and to get the right AI technology that could, for example, help to make the diagnostic. So this is already in place, and this is already currently being used in some hospitals. Just for China, there are 20 hospitals today, 20 that are using this every day. More than this, there is as well other, let's say, activities related to the medical care industry to fight this COVID-19 virus. I named some of them. I named only a few of them, 4 of them in this page. Of course, there is much more than this in the real world. There is Alibaba. Alibaba has one platform we call DingTalk that was used mainly for enterprise customers. So this platform, DingTalk, is used by enterprise customers. You can understand it's like a UC, Unified Communication Platform. And what they have done in the past few months, they have opened one specific field targeting medical industry. And this add-on in the platform is very simple like this, is to share information, to have a platform dedicated to the medical care industry that could be used across countries. So this is not specific only China. This platform is open to other countries. You have to be part of this medical care workforce, and you can use this platform, in fact, to get possible advice, knowledge, guidance, training from those who have already been facing the challenge of the COVID-19. Second one is your country is India, and there is quite strong and quite convincing work already by the India government on the medical care industry, and there is recently a new guidance that has been published, what is called Telemedicine Guidance 2020. You see the link I put here, and this one is extremely important because it is the way at the country level you can take advantage of new technology, do offer service not just in Delhi or Mumbai or in big cities, but do offer service across all country, do offer service across all country with as well issue for cost, for manpower, for expertise, that you will not be able to get top chief expert, top high-end hospital and capabilities everywhere, but you can use already the telemedicine to get a first level of support, and you have as well the possibility, even in second level or small cities, to get advantage of this telemedicine, to get consultation and to get as well support from maybe, let's say, places like Mumbai or Delhi, where there is much higher level of expertise on those medicine cases. There is Safaricom in Kenya, so it's again another case. Safaricom in Kenya has joined hand with government to offer a special package to those from the medical care industry fighting the virus in Kenya. So you do see here some of the let's say, voucher that Safaricom Kenya has given to the medical care industry to help those workers to keep in touch with their family, with as well other colleagues and so on, and in the time where there is a lot of challenge on their side to deal with this. And then the last one is UK, is just few weeks back in May, is the CEO of NHS in UK, which is linked to the National Health Service in UK. And he makes it very clear that there is need from today the health system in UK to get more innovation, making best possible use of the ICT to improve and to make more efficient all work that needs to be done at the medical care level, to improve and to optimize all of this at the country level. And they name 3 cases that you see here on the slide. I put red. It is as well for the emergency service. It is as well from remote consultation that may be better than just asking people to go to the hospital face-to-face. And as well is all aspects that you can move online instead of being pushed to get face-to-face meeting with patient. This is another case. So I move out of the medical care. I move to the education. Education get as well significant impact because of the COVID-19, because kids, students not able to go to school. Here you see one case is in Switzerland. It's just a few weeks back. This is one lesson, one live lesson in Switzerland in one of the top university, technology university in Zurich. You see here one of the high scientists that is making talk right now. At the time in the 8th of April. You see there is nobody in the auditorium. It's empty except one guy from IT that do the online recording. And then you can assume all students, if they are not in the auditorium, they are sitting in their home or in places outside of the university, joining the lesson, can have interaction with this professor, and do have as well the possibility, even after the session has been done, to again replay the session, to as well try to get better understanding on what was the talk of the teacher, if they can get second or third view of the session. So it's as well give them the possibility, if they are far away from Zurich, to still get access to this content. So this is one of the, I would expect, new capabilities that we will still develop on the education system. On the right side, this is China market. I just want to make a comment. This is the example of China, but this is not only China, UK, and as well, I'm sure, in India. I went in the past in Saudi Arabia, I was checking with some colleagues, they do this as well in Saudi Arabia, is to move the content, the education content, digital, online, accessible to all kids and students. You see here the case of China, multiple players. Operators can play significant role here. They can be there. They can as well offer capabilities to the education system. There will be as well, and you see here the one I put, the one called VIP Kid, and the one which is in red mark. There are two specific training institutes in China that in the past were only offering service in their office where kids or students need to go, and then they have, let's say, professor or teacher to help the student in their training center office. Right now, all the content, all the support is moved online. And you see as well the OTTs. So you see in China, Alibaba with DingTalk, and you see as well Tencent that are coming to this business and are as well offering their platform for online teaching. So this is a big market. If I don't make mistake, there are hundreds of millions of kids, if not maybe more than 1 billion kids worldwide are joining from primary school to university students are joining the education system. So that means if we could, and this is the summary of this slide, if we could have a consistent broadband network, which is a precondition to get this kind of online course service, it can be powerful. It can be powerful because you remove the constraint of the location. You can have everybody, even if they are not at the place where the teacher is, can join those online lessons. It can work on the 24 hours and 7 days a week for simple reason. If you miss the session because you was busy on something else, you can later replay the session and get the knowledge even if you was not available at the time of the session. So it gives a lot of flexibility how you can as well bring education into society and into kids. Another main topic that as well, it is not new, but we do believe that COVID-19 can even speed up this worldwide and typically in countries, including India, is the very simple concept of working from home. You see here, I put two big names. I put Tata Consultancy Services, I put Twitter. Both of them at the executive level make clear in the past few days that yes, it is something they do consider at the company level, and they do consider it is not going to be too far away. It is something they will consider more or less starting right now. Of course, you need time to implement all of this, but they believe it will be something that will come fast in their business. And you do see two cases, like I said, Tata and Twitter. If you connect the link I put on the right side, you see a web link I mentioned. If you connect this web link, you will see that it's not just Tata and Twitter. You will see a number of executives from different companies who right now are starting to really consider that working from home may be coming quite big in their business. And they do see right now it is working. There are challenges, of course, but they believe it is already good result, and they believe it can be something that will be speed up in the short term. So this is a kind of summary on 3 bullet points. Here, typically, if there is more and more, let's say, capabilities that need to be offered to enterprise for working from home, obviously operators will have to play a significant role here, And we do believe that on top of just connectivity, there is as well some other expertise from the operators that could be, let's say, useful for the enterprise, SMEs, and so on. And this could be as well something that will become quite a significant aspect, not waiting too long, maybe already obviously right now, but in the next few months, even after the pandemic is resolved. My last slide, as a summary, you see on the left there are different use cases that I was talking about today that are across several industries, several type of needs and requirements. I name only some here. There are 9. There are much more than this. We do believe that there is more and more use cases are becoming relevant to this time, and that could be obviously for some of them something that we will see in our society across the next months and years, that will become maybe mainstream in our society. All these use cases need, of course, to get the right capabilities. And I name on the right side 3 key capabilities that we need to guarantee if we want to implement those use cases. You need a broadband network. Whatever it is, wireless or fixed, you need a broadband network. You need a cloud system. You need a cloud because you could assume that at least for most of these services, you will have data that you will have to get somewhere and that you will have to deliver from this data application. If you have on the top of this data the right application with the right artificial intelligence, then you have more or less getting all in place. You have getting a good broadband, cloud platform, the right application, the right AI, then you can deliver powerful services. And you can say you can have more or less flexibility across the time to deliver new type of use cases, new type of services without so much limitation. So cutting edge today ICT is on the front line to deal with the virus. In short time, yes, but we believe it's not just in short time. We do see from countries, from economy, to recover from all the challenge we get right now in the industry. We do believe that ICT is well positioned and will extend its capabilities, as we have seen already in the past few years, to even more powerful, getting even more, let's say, impact, positive impact in societies, and typically is to move more digital, our society. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Emmanuel. Actually, as you can see from the comments, that was a really informative and very nice presentation. People have enjoyed it. We have some questions as well now. So we're just going to quickly move into the Q&A session. And I think I'll start with a very simple question that, we were already on the road to 5G. We were on the transformation. So because of the pandemic, have we created new markets for 5G or new areas of application? Or are we looking at the same applications just at a faster pace?
I'll give you, for example, one first level of answer. It is not only one country. We see this as well in some different countries. If you do have a campus, like medical campus, where you need in a very short time. So here, when I say short time, it's a question of days. As simple like this, okay? If you need to deliver broadband to deliver for people working at the hospital, at the campus, to connect as well some IT systems that are used at the campus that you want to connect to broadband network to, for example, exchange with headquarters of the campus or something like this. 5G has been used. There are countries like, for example, Malaysia. Of course, China has been as well using this. Thailand, that have taken advantage that if you need a request of broadband in a very short time in one campus, 5G is there. You just need to get, maybe in a few days, you can get a site up and running. And after, it's just a question of connecting routers, 5G routers, to different equipment that you have within the campus, and then you get access to this highway that can give you the flexibility to connect the video conference, to connect, for example, the CT scan to some AI systems that are located somewhere else in some maybe data center that's not necessarily in the same campus. So yes, there has been and there are already cases where 5G has been directly used to let's say, get ready for this fight, and particularly on the medical care industry. Another aspect, and I believe India, you are necessarily one of those in the world today that have the highest data usage on the wireless network, which is, in fact, if you just recall what I was telling maybe 10 minutes ago, that some top executives from different companies, including India companies, are thinking and are deeply thinking right now that there will be, and this is maybe not too long to wait, that there will be more and more their employees that will be sitting at home, working like they would go today at the office and working with colleagues at the office. If you do see this shift on the way people work, where maybe the percentage on people working at home are getting higher and higher, no way you need powerful, guaranteed type of broadband network. And yes, already there is in place different technology that can already do quite good job. But if you do see on the scaling of the, let's say, number of employees, on the scaling of the number of applications, if you see as well the scaling of the video like we are doing today, I don't know how many people are joining this meeting today, but you can assume there are quite a number of people. If you do have all of this that is scaling up, you need to be ready, and you need to be ready from capacity. And 5G, at least from one of the aspects of 5G, is to deliver capacity. And this is fit as well on those kind of, you can say, industry or country evolution. On the other side as well, there are some aspects that we could see, and these are the one I was talking about. Some industry, like the medical care, the education industry, obviously, as when you put quality network, you need a network that is stable, that is competitive, that can guarantee that you have both on every aspect of the network, both up and down good capabilities. And this is what as well 5G is putting himself on this puzzle. So yes, definitely 5G is today in place. Is something that we do consider as in several countries as top priority. I give you just three numbers that you can see today the size of what is expectation on 5G. Remember what I said early this year when the challenge came to US. Verizon took decision for $500 million additional capex in 2020, and main part will be moving to 5G. If you as well look at in Asia market, there are two countries, Korea and China. At the government level, took decision. Few weeks back, I think China was in April and Korea was more or less at the same timeline, that within the country, within the recovery plan from economic point of view, 5G is named, like AI as well, as some aspect there will be more investment, and typically more investment to create more value, to as well try to recover for all the challenge that we get today. So yes, 5G is on the front line today on this, let's say, virus, and would be as well across the next months and years quite significant on this. I don't say only 5G. There is more than just 5G. 5G by itself cannot do everything. There will be from the ICT and from nature point of view as well considering fields, considering 4G. Yes, definitely yes. 5G is just one part of all of this.
Got it. Mr. Matthews, you have, of course, been following, how all of this has rolled out in India. Could you speak about how the, network traffic increased post the pandemic? And, given that we, of course, don't have 5G, what could we expect in future once the transformation happens?
So thank you. First of all, we saw approximately a 25+% spike immediately in the couple of days after the Honorable PM announced the work from home and the quarantine. And so what we immediately had to do was when we looked at the traffic pattern on our networks, we found that the streaming video had obviously taken off through the roof. And so in order to be able to manage the load factor on our networks, we had to go to the DOT and ask that the streaming video companies reduce their transmission from high definition to standard definition, and that immediately halved that spike. So it went up by about 30%, it came down back to about 12 to 15%, and it became relatively manageable at that point because there's always excess capacity on our networks. One of the challenges, of course, that we have on our networks is the fact that we have very little, only about 20 to 25% of our network is actually fiberized from the point of the cell towers. And so that causes limitations in terms of dealing with these large spikes and surges. If you have more fiber, then you have a lot more capability to deal with these sudden expansions and demands, especially when it comes to data and you have large downloads of files or types of applications that we are seeing today, like Zoom and WebEx and these types of applications where there's both uplink and downlink requirements in the interaction. So fortunately, we're still dealing well with it, and we've also seen a redistribution of traffic, which also helps. Obviously, we don't see those spikes when people are commuting, but however, we see more movement into residential areas, obviously because work from home. But one of the things that's come back to haunt us is the fact that for the longest time, we used to get a lot of opposition about putting cell towers in localities, especially in residential areas. And now we are finding that, hey, look, if you don't have cell towers, it's very, very difficult in the context of India to provide the capacity and the coverage that is required to give you a good experience when you work from home.
Yes. I'm going to take a quick question from the audience now. Emmanuel, if you can take this. So Mr. Vijay Bhaskar asks, of course, there's a lot of dependency going forward on AI, on other emerging tech. But what Mr. Vijay Bhaskar is saying is that don't you think that the too much AI will also suppress human intelligence. So what's the role of AI with respect to taking humans into account in future going forward?
There are always need to get a kind of fair, let's say, balance between people expertise, between new technology. As of today, but we still are maybe at the beginning of AI. There are already quite a number of applications that are using AI, but I believe much more will come later. I still believe AI is extremely powerful, but cannot replace people at the end. Remember what I was telling on the case of this medical care, let's say a CT scan, let's say diagnostic. Yes, AI can help, is used, but at the end, who makes the decision is not the AI algorithm. AI algorithm give advice, guidance, and you need someone who has the expertise, who has the right expertise to deal with the final decision. And I would believe from AI today, on many cases, it can speed up the decision. It can make maybe better way to guide the decision at the end. But it is not just AI to make this decision. But definitely, I would believe this is going and this is big, and we are just at the beginning today. And it will not replace people, but it will be more and more used. And this is on every aspect in our little world today, on buying decision, on checking for which place we want to go on holidays, for example. AI can be there and will be there and already there.
But there's also a learning aspect to AI, right? AI needs fluid availability of data, and a pandemic is so new that we probably don't have data. So that has to play a role in the applicability of AI, right?
True, and you can see in this way, fully right. If the sampling is too little, then there will be maybe not perfect AI capabilities being, let's say, offered. As more the sampling is getting bigger, as more AI will become powerful and precise. There could be, and I agree with you, there could be in the early time some, let's say, cases where AI will not be able to precisely diagnostic because this case is new, because this case is maybe extreme. And if you across the time can really extend the sampling on what you can teach the AI algorithm, it will become more and more powerful, more and more precise, and more useful, in fact, for those that need this kind of pre-diagnostic and pre-guidance. So yes, it is something that as well need a proper time. It's not maybe something that in one day can solve all issue, but we do assume that. And one more comment on this. Today we talk about COVID-19. If you look at the magazine I was making statement, the Computer Weekly, that is the one from beginning of this month that was doing comment on the AI technology, especially for the COVID-19, but more generally for the medical industry. AI is already used. Some diseases in the past have already used AI to speed up the vaccine timeline, to do assessment as well on the type of, let's say, virus it is, on which type of family and which type of attribute. So in fact, on the medical care industry, AI is already there. We are just scared right now on the COVID-19, and I agree with you, we need maybe time to get maybe more powerful AI algorithm to deal with the COVID-19. But you could assume that it is a process ongoing, and it is already something that we see some result right now. Maybe if we meet 1 year later, maybe instead of 2 minutes, maybe the AI algorithm will become more precise, and you will get the diagnostic from the algorithm more getting better, and maybe it will be only 1 minute that the chief doctor will need to make the decision. So yes, it needs as well time. No technology is perfect as well. We have always to understand that there are always limitations on every technology we are dealing with. But if it can help you at some point of time for some decision to take, or for some help on guidance on making the decision, that is already useful. Except right now I see as well in the report, and you see this on TV, on internet right now, everybody is racing right now trying to speed up to get a vaccine. And to get vaccine is a very complex process. It has many parameters to care about. Some aspects which are typically which kind of best drugs to be used to fight this virus, up to some cases where you have to understand what are possible side effects on this vaccine, typically based on multiple parameters that you have to care about. And some today research lab in the world are using AI today to make assessment or early assessment on what are all those possible aspects when you define or you have to make a vaccine that need to be considered, and AI just help them to save time. If we save 1 month, 2 months, is already fantastic. As much as we save, as fast we can, as safety we will be.
Got it. There's a question from Brijendra, and Mr. Matthews, maybe you can start and we can go to Emmanuel about the global aspect. Brijendra asks, is 5G absolutely necessary, or can fiber to home or hospital work for places like hospitals and working from home or anything else for that matter? So maybe the distinction is important here. Mr. Matthews, you're on mute.
Thank you. From our perspective, it's not an either or, it's a both and, right? Because you have to get fiber, whether you're in 5G or 4G, it enhances the experience. So fiber, whether it's to the home, the one difference between the two is that you're dealing more when you talk about the home experience, about indoor coverage. And so this is another thing that we would have to pay careful attention at in the Indian context, right? So yes, you can have fiber up to the curb or else, but interior coverage is also important. One thing that I want to clarify, there are several applications that absolutely need 5G and many things that don't. So for example, when Emmanuel talked about the medical applications, when you need extremely low latencies for some of the applications, then you can't do without 5G, because 5G gives you 2 milliseconds or less. 4G can only get you up to 12 milliseconds. All right. When you need high densification of local sensors, right, that can't be handled by 4G. It has to be handled by 5G. So in an increasingly dense sensor-driven environment, 5G is absolutely essential. When they are not essential, obviously 4G can deliver the goods. So we need both, and it depends on what we're trying to achieve and address.
Got it. And Vivekanand asks, of the 5G use cases, what do you think are the most relevant for India?
You asked to me?
Is this for Emmanuel?
To me, to Emmanuel?
Sorry, yeah. Emmanuel, you can take that. Sorry.
Okay. I would believe there are multiple, aspects that could be useful in India when you look at 5G. I would expect, if you have to look at on the different cases, fixed wireless access or home broadband, I believe it is one of the maybe first aspect need to be considered. And I fully agree, Mr. Matthew comment. I would not oppose, and I would not say that 5G will solve every aspect of the business and the broadband in India. It's just one of them. It's just one toolkit within a different, let's say, option that you have on the table. If there are places where you can do fiber, let's do fiber. If there are places where fiber will not be possible for different reasons, then 5G can be a relevant candidate. There are as well considerations like mentioned by Mr. Matthew. What are scenarios we are looking for? Are they only broadband getting the highest possible speed on uplink, downlink? Are there some other aspect we want to deliver? I'll just give you one information. Maybe you saw this in the past because it is public information. In Germany, they have open application to verticals to ask them if yes or no they want spectrum. They have to make one application. This came into practice a few months back. It was in the past few months that this was officially open to whoever in Germany applied those applications to get spectrum from government to make use of this on a local basis. Okay, this is not an application that you get at the country level. This is just at the local basis, assuming a campus. So currently, some numbers, it seems already close to 40 companies in Germany do have applied those applications, do request government to give them spectrum at the, let's say, campus level. So that means they should have already in mind something they want to do on 5G that they cannot do on the fixed network today, that they cannot do as well on other technology. So this is just one indication. We do not maybe think that this is maybe the best possible choice. We believe maybe operators as well should be the one to deal with this and should have the, let's say, capabilities much better than maybe verticals to realize the capabilities of this 5G network, because they have all competence already on the wireless, because they of course do already work on 5G, on testing and so on. Maybe better to really take full advantage on 5G. So we still believe operators are well positioned to do this business, and we do see that there are already quite a number of big companies do look at 5G as one possible option for their business. We see today in Asia market, there are several countries, Singapore, for example, as well in Southeast Asia, Indonesia is doing some early work as well. Of course, China, Korea, Japan, linked to service that are not anymore, let's say, like in the past, purely broadband, like wireless broadband, like you connect smartphone routers, but are different type of services. I agree with Mr. Matthew's comment. There are more services that will be with sensors, with machine, with cameras, and so on, that we need to be considered. And you have new requirements. You have new requirements that are as well across the time need to be scaled. If you connect one camera, maybe you can do with 4G today, is no big issue. If we are telling you, okay, tomorrow, next week, next month, it's not one, it's 100 cameras. And maybe in summertime, we want 1,000 cameras. If you have this kind of scaling, let's say in the pipeline, yes, more and more you will see that there are requirements that 5G could deliver, and that, for example, legacy technology do have more challenge to deliver on the verticals. And I do believe at the size of India, I don't see it will be everywhere and straightforward, but at the size of India, on the current, let's say, different industry that India is powerful, obviously there will be as well some of them coming to these needs and looking at the way they can be more efficient to deliver, for example, containers at the seaport, to, for example, do as well better capabilities on some large campus, can be medical care like we are talking about, but other large campus, and can take advantage as well on 5G to deliver the right service and to as well make more efficient the way they deliver service. So I believe to be checked as well, to do assessment. It's not something maybe today meeting we can precisely mention exactly what will be needed, but I would believe that in India there will be across the time step-by-step needs that will come, that will make clear that 5G is needed. The one maybe straightforward is the home broadband. I still believe 5G can be powerful on the home broadband and can deliver a very good, let's say, ratio between investment and return. And on top of this, there is more maybe business like on the 2B, medical care and so on, that could be as well realistic. And typically on this is new requirement and as well scaling the size of what you want to connect on object and sensors.
Got it. And Ishwar has asked, how do we see the use cases for 5G versus Wi-Fi 6? Does Wi-Fi 6 complement 5G? How does the TSP look at it? So maybe, Emmanuel, you can take it and then we can go to Mr. Matthews and both of you can answer this one by one. Okay.
Yeah, it was not Wi-Fi 6. It was Wi-Fi, it was 10 years ago, it was at the time of LTE, and there was question. Do we need LTE? Why not getting Wi-Fi? Why not you have this broadband, wireless, on Wi-Fi instead on LTE? There was long debate, and we see today in 2020 we have both. We have Wi-Fi and we have LTE, and we have success on both. I would expect Wi-Fi 6 and 5G will be on the same level. Why? Because they are targeting different use cases. They are targeting different capabilities. You cannot compare a Wi-Fi 6 with a 5G. If you ask someone, are you able to deliver typically a seamless coverage at the district, at the city, at the suburb, and please do it with Wi-Fi 6, I would believe it would be just impossible because of the cost. And at the same time, if you ask the same question to an operator who has 5G license, I believe it is not big deal to do it. On the top of this, there is one key aspect that as well is linked to application, to what you want to deliver at the end, at which level of quality you want to deliver the application. Is a very basic thing. Both Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 6, LTE, 5G are using spectrum. The big difference between those are the way they are assigned by regulators. Wi-Fi assign unlicensed spectrum. 5G, like 4G, still mainstream today, is a licensed spectrum. This makes a big difference at the end on what can be the service and what can be the quality of the service you deliver. I will not name the company. It's a car maker. It's one of the biggest car maker in the world. They do have factory, typically like in China. They do have warehouse in the factory. They do have warehouse today to deal with all the suppliers they have on components and so on. And this huge warehouse. Today, very few people are working in the warehouse. They are robots. They are robots that are powered with Wi-Fi. And they are using this on every single day. And what they are telling us today is that on average, every single day, there are some service interruption. Few seconds. Sometimes very bad issue will happen and there will be maybe one robot that will be blocked maybe for 10, 20, 30 seconds. So they try to fix it, of course. They try to know why it's coming like this, but they never can guarantee that it will be stable from one day to another one. So when it comes to 5G, they are making very clear statement or asking very simple question. Are you able to guarantee that if we move to 5G, the same service can be more efficient? And typically, are you able to guarantee a zero failures on those robots if we power them by 5G? For sure, at the size of the factory is huge. The numbers in my mind is the huge campus. Today they have thousands. It's not just one or two. It's thousands of robots every single day working in the factory. If you can optimize, even if it is just few percentage, all of those thousands of robots, you can save money. You can speed up. A factory is simple like this: produce more, produce better, produce cheaper. So if they can do more carts on a single day, if they can have, in fact, better way to supply the production chain with the robot and more efficient, then they will look at this. So they are making an assessment. They will, of course, check. They will compare. They will look at what Wi-Fi is doing today, what 5G can deliver. Are they going to improve, for example, the way those robots today have challenged or not? And they will, at the end, they will make the decision. And like I said, I don't know in Germany, those that set the application, what they really want to do in their campus. But if you have close to 40 companies in less than 6 months that have set the application, I would believe they do see, because I would believe they already use Wi-Fi today. But I believe they are looking maybe for something better or that could offer as well something else. It's not necessarily as well that they will replace Wi-Fi everywhere. They may still keep Wi-Fi for some service and put, for example, other service on 5G. So I believe, and we can meet maybe 10 years later to see the result. I would believe both will be. And you will have service on Wi-Fi 6 and you will have service on 5G.
Got it. Mr. Matthews, do you have anything to add to that?
Mr. Emmanuel has been absolutely comprehensive on the question answer, so I have nothing to add to his comprehensive answer.
Thank you very much.
So I think with that, we'll bring the Q&A session to an end. I'll throw it back to you, Mr. Matthews, for some closing comments, and we'll end it with that.
I was watching the comments and the observations by the participants, and to a person, everybody was commenting on the lucidity of the presentation, the clarity of the presentation, the comprehensive nature of the presentation, and the usefulness of the presentation. So, Emmanuel, I tell you, as we say, this is a sixer in Indian cricket terms. So thank you very much for this very for this very appropriate presentation. Very helpful. It is anchored in use cases. It's practical. It's useful. It's timely. It addresses that we're grappling with, and we are so very thankful for Huawei allowing your expertise to be shown. Many people have asked whether they could get a copy of your presentation. Folks who might be looking for that. But again, I just want to say thank you to Emmanuel. A splendid presentation, very engaging. Thank you for this. Very informative, lucid, well communicated, and to Huawei for making it possible for you to present, and again for HT and Mint. Prasad, again for your anchoring this. Again, thank you for that. And also to folks at IMC and COAI, Nabil and others who are doing the back end of this and helping this. My big thanks. And again, not to say the least, our participants, you are the folks who actually make all of this worthwhile. So again, thank you for participating. Thank you for logging in. We hope that is not only useful for you, but also useful for our country. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew. Thank you very much.
And we're sorry, Mr. Lee had to drop out because of urgent meeting. But thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. Let's sign off. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.